Voters want closer EU ties, a poll suggests, despite Brexit silenced by the parties. We're going to read into this exclusive from the iNews, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from iNews with the headline of Voters Want Closer EU Ties, a poll suggests, despite Brexit silenced by the party. The exclusive reveals that respondees also show that the public is also most likely to oppose leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share across social media so others are notified of this video. So let me put an important caveat before I give any more further views. I would always say with any polls, always take them with a pinch of salt. Don't jump to conclusions. It is just a small group of people of what their perception and what their thoughts are at the current time that poll was conducted. People's opinions and views can change over time. So as I always want to stress that whenever we look at these polls. Now, why am I covering this one? Well, this ties into a couple of other things as well. So for anyone who's been paying attention to a lot of debates lately, especially with audience members, you will know that whenever the mention of Brexit comes up and the damage that has been caused, you have noticed that pretty much a vast majority of audience members have applauded and pretty much in favour of them. Stephen Flynn being a prime example in some of the seven leaders debates, or when it's been brought up and highlighted Brexit, many people applauding in appreciation and in agreement that Brexit is something that's not being talked about enough. So, and that's just from audience members. Now, I've not seen enough of people asked about Brexit on the out and about. So, and I think that's something we need to take into account as well. However, I do think this when I've talked about what Brexit could have and what kind of impact it could have on this general election. I don't think it will make as big as an impact, but I do think it will be something that will frustrate members of the public simply because many people are suffering as a result of us leaving the European Union, leaving the single market and customs union, not having the same rights that we used to have. And that is definitely being felt by people ever since we officially left. And that's not going away. Many youngsters who don't have the same privileges that adults had of being part of the EU will definitely feel that as well. So to say that I would say that while I do say, yeah, with polls, you should always take them with a pinch of salt, I also say that there is some truth to some of this as well. So this first piece here, this is a BMG poll for the eye that shows stronger support for close EU ties than its opposition. So it says here, do you support the following policy? So blue for support and yellow for oppose. A UK-EU agreement to remove paperwork required on food and drink exports. So 47% support and 11% oppose. So I think everyone would agree that they will want less paperwork, which means obviously red tape on food and drink. Rejoining the European single market, 47% approve to 30% oppose a single market. So it's definitely, while it does say that more people approve support rejoining the single market, there's still quite strong people who are against rejoining as well there. So it's just a lot tighter there. The other one there is extending the right to vote in the UK to all EU citizens with settled status. 43% support it, but 27% oppose it. So there are still an opposement of people who don't agree that the right to vote to all EU citizens with settled status there, but the majority are in favour of it. And then finally at the bottom there, leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, that's the ECtHR, which you hear quite a lot about. 26% supported the idea of leaving the ECtHR to 45% there. So let's read a bit more into these polls here. So more voters want the UK to go back into the EU than stay out, and there is a strong support for a softer Brexit despite the party's decisions not to drag the issue into the election campaign. The public is also much more likely to be opposed to calls to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, which Reform leader Nigel Farage and some right-wing Conservatives believe is necessary to tackle the Channel's small boat crisis. The figures will add to pressure on the next government to continue Rishi Sunak's effort to build bridges with the EU, with voters seemingly unimpressed with Boris Johnson's hard Brexit and suggestions of pulling even further away from Europe. So this is another source from the BMG who extended this poll. So is the Labour Party ready? To what extent do you consider the Labour Party ready or unready for government here? Is what it's asking here. And so you got there from very ready to somewhat ready, not very ready, not ready at all, or don't know. From October 2023, April 2024, May 2024, and June 2024 there. So you can see there that more people think they are somewhat ready, but maybe not very ready, according to those who've been conducted in this poll. I would also say that the very ready has also gone up a few percentage points there as well. Nothing so much but changed by not ready at all or very ready, but there. In terms of what they've put there in terms of Labour votes, Labour 2019 voters to Conservative 2019 voters there. Interesting enough, you see 43% think they're not at all ready for it. 25% say they're not very ready. But interestingly, 21% there, according to them, from 2019 Conservative voters, think 21% of them think they're somewhat ready there, which is interesting. Obviously, 51% of Labour voters in 2019 saying they're very ready. 37% say they're somewhat ready as well. And then you have the net percentage, NET, their percentage of ready as well. They're 88% 2019 voters, and 68% think they're not ready there. But the percentages are rounded as well. I think that's an important caveat in those statistics there. So the BMG Research polling for I shows 47% of voters want to rejoin the EU, with 39% favouring staying out, while 47% want to rejoin the single market and 30% want to stay out. With Labour looking overwhelmingly likely to form the next government, Sir Keir Starmer is also likely to come under particular pressure, as a majority of voters currently back his party want to rejoin the EU. 64% with a quarter, 25% oppose, or rejoin the single market at 65 to 19%. The figures suggest that the Labour leader's red lines are out in kilter with most of his voters, with him ruling out rejoining the EU or the single market and customs unions as he seeks to win back Leave voters who deserted the party who followed the Tories in 2019. But he may point to a more clear backing for his plan for a UK-EU veterinary agreement, with 47 to 11% to remove paperwork on food and drink exports between both sides, and evidence that his flagship policy can straddle Remain lead divides. Indeed, a veterinary agreement is the only proposal to bring the UK closer to the continent that has the backing of Leave voters. With 50% backing a deal, is just 14% opposing it, which could allow Keir Starmer to claim that his Brexit policy is in the right position. And 45% of those asked oppose the UK leaving the ECtHR, with 26% in favour. So they've also got another one here, an impact of a Labour government. Of what do you expect the impact of Labour government would be on tax? Overall, 41% of it would increase. 30% say it would stay the same. 9% say it would decrease, and 21% are not sure. So you can see that Conservative voters, 70% of you believe that taxes will be increased. And 48% of Labour voters, interestingly enough, think it will be staying the same. 20% of Labour voters actually think it will increase as well. Interesting there. 15% there obviously think it will go down. Me interesting to see anyway, that's for sure. Oliver Wright, a pollster at BMG, said the main party seemed determined not to talk about Brexit, which is understandable considering the issue's divisiveness. Few also consider it a top issue facing the country. I do agree with that. Not everybody looking at the cost of living crisis, I think, and the economy is the main thing that people are talking about, as well as the NHS. However, public opinion does not strongly endorse either the success of Brexit or the nature of the relationship the UK has with the EU. Even if you leave the question on rejoining to one side, there is certainly significant support for a closer EU-UK relationship. Labour's position on a UK-EU veterinary agreement to remove paperwork for food and drinks exports has more support than opposition. The more noticeable step of rejoining the European single market is also supported by more people than those who oppose it, despite being more diverse than Labour's policies. Presuming Keir Starmer enters Downing Street, it'll be interesting to see if, with public opinion as it is and the election behind him, if he feels able to talk about Brexit more openly, if he considers it too risky to fragile voter coalition. Meanwhile, there is evidence that contest Tory attacks on the Labour leader's economic plans were cutting through to voters, with 41% believing that they will pay more tax if Labour wins, and fewer than 1 in 10 believing that the party's assurances that they would cut the tax burden for working people. If this does not appear, it will be affecting people's votes, with Labour's lead over the Conservatives increasing to 23 points compared to last week's poll. And Rishi Sunak went backwards to 19% and now level with Reform. Yeah, those polls, I mean, it's not really, the vast majority of polls are saying that they're not really changing in terms of, I was expecting the gap to narrow, and it just hasn't happened. I was generally expecting the gap to narrow between the Conservatives and Labour, and it still hasn't happened. And at this point, I'm not expecting it to narrow, and I expect the Reform to continue to close the gap or even overtake the Conservatives, which is mind-boggling because they're kind of not doing anywhere near enough. And every day seems to be a disaster day for the Conservatives, which is quite crazy, really. While voters may harbour concerns about Keir Starmer's tax plans, he appears to be increasingly convincing as a Prime Minister in waiting, with a clear majority. 53% of voters believe that his party is now ready for government, up 3 points from the start of the campaign. Yeah, so the BMG's research interviews a representative sample of 1,627 Great British adults online between the 18th and 19th of June. BMG are members of the British Polling Council and abide by their rules. So yeah, like I say, I always say with polls, just take them with a pinch of salt. But I do think there is some truth to some of how people feel about what's happened to Brexit since then. This comment that I keep seeing every now and then about saying it's over, get over it and move on. Well, I'm sorry, but that's never going to happen. We are going to continue to talk about it because every single day that passes, it continues to damage our economy, to damage our livelihoods, to make life more difficult for us going in and out of Europe. The countless businesses that are suffering because of the extraordinary amount of red tape, businesses that want to do business from the EU into the UK are going to suffer as a result, are suffering or going to suffer even more as a result of coming in as well. Where is the incentive for Britain to be first on anything if we're not even going to have a strong trading relationship with our best partners across the pond? So, while I do think it is a topic, but it's not going to be one that's going to be talked about because the main parties don't want to talk about it. But Labour will be forced to talk about it. Now, some people that I know who are part of the Labour Party, or shall I say Labour members and those on the inside, the vast majority have said, as far as I'm aware, the vast majority of people inside Labour are in favour of rejoining. But they also understand that it's a very sensitive and difficult topic to talk about, which is why they're keeping it on the sidelines for now. But that doesn't mean to say that it won't be talked about within a Labour government. And I think that's something that may come about, maybe not straight away when Labour comes into power, but maybe more down the road. But it'll be interesting to see how, when they do start talking about it, how will it affect public opinion and how people will feel about it, because it will be a can of worms when it becomes a topic of discussion again. But what do you guys think? What do you guys make of this polling from BMG? What do you guys make of the situation with Brexit so far? And what impact, if any, do you think it will have on this general election? And how and when do you think this may become a topic of discussion for a future Labour government? Let me know your thoughts and more in the comment section down below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.